This is Matt Rosen, and this is The Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of The Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. I am Matt Rosen, your host. Today with me, I've got a special guest. I've got Christine Rogers. She is the co-founder of Spark Farm. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for coming on. Tell our audience a little bit about what you do.
I'm a co-founder of a 16-year-old company called Spark Farm. It's a marketing and PR firm. We were invented because we had been in large agency jobs that were in the midst of the recession in 2009. We looked around and all of the people who were losing their jobs were the working moms like myself. And so we were kind of doing the parallel path of trying to find new jobs. There weren't any to be had. And so we were like, maybe there's a better way to do this. Big agency jobs are not really known for being very friendly to working moms anyway. So we set ourselves on a path to try to reinvent the workplace for women.
So 16 years and growing, we're going to dig into the whole story in a minute. And who do you serve? Who are your clients?
We have a variety of clients. Some are national, some are local, a lot of them actually are nonprofits. Mm-hmm. We had a 13-year growing together pattern with North Texas Giving Day as one example of our nonprofit clients. But, we're a full service agency, and some of our national reach clients include Coca-Cola Southwest Beverages and just kind of an array of clients from nonprofit to for-profit.
And you've got some interesting ones. And we share a client, Chayton Fonestock with Sportsmo, who's introduced us.
An app startup. I know. I love it.
Yeah, he's raising money for all the college football teams out there. That's been a fun one.
It is awesome, and such a fun challenge to try to figure out how do you gamify giving in the landscape of college football.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he introduced us and glad you're on the show. So tell us about your beginnings. I know we're both from Northern Virginia or spent time there. Curious, talk about early childhood and kind of maybe what led you down this path to being an entrepreneur and starting your own thing.
Well, it's interesting because I think about my upbringing, and my mom was mostly staying at home with us to raise us. She did have jobs she might actually be somebody that modeled me without my knowing it, because as a kid, I was just like, oh, she just has this sometimes job where she goes and she helps out at a bank or a mortgage company, and, she does some odd jobs for them. But really, it was kind of inspiring because she figured out a way to still keep her skills sharp and still bring income into the family, but model her job around a part-time schedule that would allow her to be present for us. My dad, full-time defense contractor in the DC area. And I still don't exactly know what he did because he never really talks about it. We like to think that he's somehow CIA or FBI, but we'll never know. Anyway, so between the two of them, they just were an amazing model for how to kind of balance it all, how to have a strong career, but still be able to be present for your family, which ended up being a big reason for why we started Spark Farm.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, my mom was a stay-at-home for the most part, but found time to teach. My dad was an Army lawyer, spent lots of time around the Pentagon, but we had to bounce every so often. So I was always trying to have her find something fun to do while having to raise four of us. So it's amazing how parents are able to do that sometimes.
The grittiest.
Yeah, it's gritty. Yeah. So grew up in Northern Virginia. Where'd you end up going to school?
I went to St. Mary's College, which is an all-women's school in South Bend, Indiana. For anybody listening in Texas, the first assumption is that it's the one near San Antonio, and it's not. St. Mary's College in South Bend, Indiana, which is an all-women's school. And I credit them also with being a lot of the inspiration for who I am as a person, who I am as a business leader, and really the founding of Spark Farm. When I moved to Dallas, and tell me if I'm getting ahead of ourselves here.
No, you're good.
When I moved to Dallas for the big agency, one of many big agency jobs, I quickly learned that it was a little bubble being at St. Mary's College where women were for women. We were in small classes, we were learning from each other, leaning on each other, encouraging each other. It was all very supportive. And then to come to Dallas and have 3 consecutive jobs where women were not that way to each other. They were cutting each other down, backstabbing, gossiping. I just did not understand it at all.
That must have been a big shock coming out of St. Mary's.
It was a big shock. And I never really liked it. And I felt like a fish out of water a lot. And so, you just got to put your head down and do your work and try your best to figure things out and stand up for yourself when you can. And I did that for as long as I could. And then when the opportunity presented itself to me, i.e. the recession and being laid off, it was like, well, no better time than the present to try and do it the way I want to do it.
Yeah, so talk about some of those large agencies you work for. I think when we talked on the phone preparing for this, you said a lot of it was somewhat male dominated. You had to kind of break in, and the women that were there, were kind of at each other. So talk a little bit more about what that was like and how you navigated through that.
I mean, I just remember being dressed down in a large, this is going to age me a lot, but there was like a computer room. Nobody had their actual own computers. You had to, it was like a library.
You had to share it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it was my turn at a computer. And I remember my boss at the time coming in, sitting down next to me, and this is so silly and so simple, but it's indicative of how mean people can be sometimes. And she didn't like the way that I was doing something, and she called me out in front of everybody. And she said, all you are is an assistant media planner. Like, so demeaning. Why do you have to do that? Not cool at all. So anyway, you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, I guess, and move on through the day. And, just little chips like that at your soul over time just makes you want to try something different.
Did you ever think about going to a different field or?
No, I really love trying to be a creative problem solver for world's issues. And my best skill set is marketing and PR. And so that's the way I come at it, which is why a lot of my clients are nonprofits, because they're doing the hard work and I'm just helping get the word out, which hopefully helps them do their job better.
Okay. So 2009 hits, bottom falls out.
Right.
What happens next?
A handful of us were like, I got laid off. Yes, I got laid off. And we're looking around and it's just the bodies that laid on the floor were mostly working moms. And so a couple of us, brought we're like, well, at least we can spend time with our little kids now.
Yeah.
So, we would arrange play dates. And while they were running around on the slides and swings and stuff, we were sitting on benches trying to figure out, how could we make this work differently? And sharing stories about how all of our husbands were like, it'll never work. It'll never work. And so we tried to pacify them by saying, well, I'm also applying for jobs. But I literally was offered a job, the exact same job that I had held maybe 10 years prior for the exact same pay, same title, same pay. And I was like, I cannot do that. I cannot take that much of a step back in my career, even though it's a scary time and it's a recession. We have to be able to try to do this ourselves and do it better. We set ourselves a goal of making 75% of the salary that we had earned in the jobs to make at least that much money for ourselves on our own. And happy to say that we met that goal in the first year, and it's just been kind of off to the races ever since.
That's fantastic. And you had a co-founder that helped you start this out, right?
3 co-founders originally. One of them is no longer working with Spark Farm. But my other co-founder and I are still there and doing great. She is on the paid media side and I'm on the PR side. And we've kind of built this team over time that's all experts in their field, and everybody brings a different kind of skill set. So I'm PR, so Taylor's paid media. We've got a teammate, Lexi, who does digital media. Somebody else does organic social media and email content. We've got influencer marketing. I know I'm forgetting something, brand strategy and marketing planning. I mean, it's kind of a full suite of services. We don't do app development. That's why we like you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Well, so to talk about some of those conversations you had on the playground. I don't know how old your kids were at the time, but what led you to let's start our own thing? Is it you just didn't want to go back? And
we didn't like the way that most corporate jobs, and especially big agency jobs, which are the ones we are the most familiar with, were absolutely not flexible for working parents.
Yeah.
Moms in particular. I don't think this is a shock to anybody when I say that a lot of the burden of caring for the kid while also pursuing a career falls on the shoulder of the mom. And your wife. Yeah.
She's a doc and tries to spend as much time as she can at home, but it's definitely a balance for sure. Yeah.
And so we were like, as we're watching our kids play on the playground, we're we're moms who love our kids. Most
Yeah.
moms are that way. And so you really do want to do both. And it's kind of the holy grail of how do I balance all of that? And so that was kind of the thing that grounded us as we were forming it. How do we create something that will allow us to have that flexibility to be at the top of our games, pursue our careers, hone our craft, but still be present for our kids? Because we also think it's really important to model that for the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the generation where we were learning in textbooks. It was the era of 50% of the pronouns in every textbook has to be she. I don't know if you remember that, but that was a big deal. And I remember both of my parents saying, you can be anything you want when you grow up. And so, we're growing up in this era of teaching by our parents and by our teachers. But the thing that was missing was, what does that mean once the women get the careers? Then what does it mean on the home front? And so anyway, Spark Farm exists so that we can try to figure that out as we're going.
No, that's really awesome inspiration. Like the models that exist, create your own. So what have been some of the challenges that you've encountered along the way? Is there any particular story or stories you can share about early times building the business?
Well, one really hard lesson that I learned is, let me start by saying that of all the things that I love to do in my life, the two things I like to do the least are math and reading legal contracts. I can't. It just takes all the coffee in the world. I have to have a full night of sleep, no distractions. Anyway, so when the three of us founded Spark Farm, each of us brought a skill set. Mine was not math or legal, but one of the other partners brought legal to the table, had a friend who was willing to write our founding contracts. And I learned the very hard and expensive way that even if you don't like to do something, you need to learn how to do it and do it well, or hire somebody who you trust to do that for. Anyway, it was a long, hard lesson to learn about legal contracts, their formation of a company, and how important that is to get it right and equitable from the beginning.
I guess something didn't go well with those legal documents, or
something
can you share that?
Well,
What's the short story?
Our third founder wanted to leave the company, and it was a really rocky departure, and the fallback was on holes that I didn't detect in the 60-page document because I didn't have enough coffee that day when I read it, and didn't think to ask my lawyer friend to look at it for me. So anyway, it ended up being a $30,000 lesson that I learned.
Yeah, those are always
in
tough
the
lessons.
Early years. Also, when we were, still trying to build the business.
Yeah. All right. Well, you are on the grit mindset. So I ask every guest, nobody gets away from the question, is what does grit mean to you, and how do you apply it?
Grit to me means there's something that's really hard in front of you, and you just figure out a way forward. It's resilience. For me, resilience and grit are hand in hand. You're faced with hardship and you just find a way through. You muscle through. One of my dad's key phrases that he taught me growing up was, growing up little, but also recently told me this, reminded me of this. He's like, Christine, you have to find the path forward. And I think that's true in a lot of cases, not just work, but family also.
No, I like that. There's only one path. It's usually through, but it can always be challenging.
With your head down.
No, that's great. Well, as the company has grown, it's been you and the co-founder. You've now been growing the 16 years. Are there any challenging things you've run into, either with clients, hiring people? Can you share with us any stories that have been difficult once you got through that whole legal thing?
Yes. Well, another one of our founding principles, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about not loving being in an environment where people aren't supportive of each other and that there's backstabbing. So what's your cussing policy on the grit
Cuss
mindset?
all you want.
Okay.
We've had all sort of F-bombs and everything else. You're not going to offend our listeners, or they shouldn't be our listeners.
All right, well then this is a B- cuss word based on your baseline, but we have a no asshole policy.
Yes,
and
I was hoping you'd get to that.
Well, this applies to not only ourselves. Don't be assholes to each other.
Yeah.
Among our team, and goes back to my experiences. I really felt very firmly like we are not going to be jerks to each other. But it also extends to clients, to new business, and to other collaborators that might later join our team.
Yeah.
We are zero tolerance for sexism, ageism, racism, homophobia. We don't have time for that. We don't have tolerance for that. We also really disavow ourselves of any liars or cheats or manipulators.
Things usually work out better when you stay away from those kind of folks.
Yeah, but it's really, I think that's unusual and hard in the agency or professional services sector because you are chasing the client. And a lot of times people will just, turn a blind eye or say, we need this because we're trying to make payroll and I get that there's a lot of financial pressure there. But we've just kind of drawn a hard line with that. We've walked away from new business that was referred to us because it didn't pass the sniff test. We have gracefully exited from clients that it just obviously was not a good fit.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of courage and belief in yourself to do that and know that another client will come along that's a better fit for your business.
Right. And guess what? I mean, the world is so much more enjoyable when you are surrounding yourself with people who are good and doing good things.
I totally agree. I'd much rather work with people I like.
Yeah.
Just makes life more fun. It's too short.
Right. Exactly.
No, I love the no asshole policy. And how do you enforce that internally? Have you ever hired someone that wasn't a fit and had to show them the door?
Yes, we did have one situation like that. And I won't say that they were necessarily an asshole. I think it was just maybe not a good fit for our team. And it became apparent on both sides. And so then, an extension of the no asshole policy is a no gossip policy. And, we really just try to encourage, if you have an issue with somebody about something, just have an honest conversation with them about it directly, not, in a side room gossiping about somebody. So, after one particularly contentious meeting, just the three of us huddled and she was the first one to say, she's like, this probably isn't going to be a fit, is it? I said, I don't think it is. And I'm sorry about that because you're awesome and you're very smart and you're great at what you do, but it's not going to work, I don't think. So anyway, we parted ways and that's just one example.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I mean, again, I'll use the word courage again. That's what it takes to keep the business strong. And once you let just a little bit infiltrate in, it's amazing how quick it can, a bad client, a bad person can kill a culture.
Right. 100%.
So you got to be ready just to make a move. So you've got 2 kids. They're grown. We were talking about them earlier. How have you, do you feel like you've instilled grit within them? I'm sure setting an example would be one thing, but maybe talk about that. Because I have 2 daughters. Both my wife and I work. We're really hoping they grow up to be productive human beings. So what have you done to make your kids as successful as they've been so far?
I mean, a lot of it is just luck. But I mean, I would say, the virtues and the lessons that my parents taught me are the same kinds of things that I'm trying to pass on to them. I have a single mom who told me that she was getting pressure from people saying like, you're the only parent and you're working all the time. And she was getting a lot of blowback from her network about that. And I was like, are you kidding me? You are modeling for your son the resilience and grit that is required to, be successful and sustain life for yourself. He is seeing you model what it is to be a devoted mom and a hardworking woman. And the fact that you can balance this all successfully, he knows that you love him. You do love him. I mean, I don't know. I feel strongly that it's a lead by example situation as parents. That's all we can really do. And I mean, my kids have said, well, who knows, right? Who knows what's coming down the pipe? But for right now, at this moment in time, I do hear them say things like, I see how you manage it. I like how you're figuring out a way to do both things. And it feels really good. I hope that is true.
Yeah, no, that's great. And earlier you talked about the kids playing on the playground and the husband's kind of doubting what you're going to do. How did you and your co-founders kind of get through that time?
There was champagne, there were M&Ms, kids on the playground. There were business plans being written on sticky notes and like giant Post-it note papers. At the same time, we were fielding calls for interviews and setting up interview appointments. So we could tell the husbands, legitimately, I had an interview today, but most of the time was being spent trying to come up with the business plan for Spark Farm. There were lots of moments for those earlier years where there was a lot of tap dancing. Like they would say things such as, well, are you even making enough money? Or that there's a huge tax penalty on small businesses and, so, the money that you're bringing home is not necessarily net to us. And, so you're trying to around your husbands. And then just recently, my co-founder Taylor's husband said, can I have a job at Spark Farm. And then not long after that, my husband said the same thing. I had to tell him he wasn't client facing enough to be able to do what I do. But anyway, so it's just funny how everything turned around. You just keep doing it, stay committed. And if you're on a solid path, it kind of lays itself out before you.
That's kind of funny. So your husband asked for a job?
Yeah. He's actually applied for a job 3 times and I keep shooting him down.
Might be healthier for the marriage.
That's right.
I know my wife and I couldn't work together full time. Some couples figure out how to do it.
I know. Who are those people? Those would be good people to have on your podcast.
Yeah. Have the couple come on.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So as we kind of talked about your early upbringing, it sounds like both your folks were really strong mentors watching them. Can you talk about the influence they had on you as well as any other mentors you had in your professional career?
Yeah, and I think my parents are kind of a perfect combination, not just because of the kinds of roles that they had in their working era, but also because of just who they were personality-wise. My mom is a very intuitive an intuitive student of people and personality, and she sees a lot of gray area, which allows for very deep relationship building and trust building and things like that, softer skills that are very important. And then my dad is much more of a kind of, there's not a lot of gray area. He's matter of fact, very business oriented, which, is a necessary skill as well. Right. So the two of them together kind of form a package deal. Then I move into my later life and there are some people that come to mind immediately. Lisa Lee was a creative director at Ogilvy and Mather, and she was the one who kind of put the kibosh on office gossip. So I had experienced it prior, but I went into her office one day to complain about something that one of our colleagues had been doing, and it was really frustrating and hard to work around or whatever. And she goes, "Well, have you tried talking to him about it?" I said, "No." And the fact that she not only gave permission to have a direct conversation, but insisted on it, that was kind of a turning point for me.
Yeah.
And then honestly, there were a ton of male bosses that I had at Ogilvy and Mather that were fantastic. Ralph Sherman, Parker Ransom, and Joel Carter all were super supportive. I came to them. I like to tell Ralph, I'm like, I came to you kind of as damaged goods. And he goes, "You did. I was kind of scared of you." But, they had the combination of business mentality, but also a softer side, and just were really doing a very good job of creating an inclusive culture, which I think went a lot toward who I became later.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you have you taken on any mentees in your role, maybe employees or outside of that, or?
So Spark Farm is, we're a flat organization. Yeah. Nobody works for anybody else. We are, I'm a co-founder, so with Taylor, and ultimately we are making, business level decisions, but, Ashley is not giving me organic social media content that I then approve. That's not how we go. We were all at the top of our game anyway, so it's flat and we don't have bosses. But we have had interns. And so I guess, in that way, I'm mentoring people. Lots of friends that I have in my various networks have kids that are graduating from college and looking for guidance. So I guess those are the ways that I contribute.
Well, it sounds like you built a fantastic organization and been able to give a lot back to the team that you work around and set a great example for those around you. So are there any other areas that we didn't cover during the podcast that you were hoping we'd talk about?
I feel like we covered a lot of ground.
We did. So I guess as we wrap up this week's episode of The Grit Mindset, are there any closing thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners? And think we've got people who are, entrepreneurs, want to be entrepreneurs, thinking about making their next move. What kind of final words of wisdom can you share with them?
I would just say that be attentive to what's going on in the world and, what sits right with you and what doesn't. And just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean that it can't be created. And if you have a strong calling, other people will find that and be attracted to it and come along for the ride. I can't tell you what an outpouring of support there has been by working moms and others who aren't working moms who see the value of what Spark Farm brings. Reinventing the workplace, it's one small team at a time to try to make it so that we can be present for ourselves, for for our families and for our clients.
Speaking of the working moms that you look to support, that's what you were, that's where you came from, that's a lot of your team. What would you say to them? Because I think many might still be sitting there saying, how do I take the first step? How do I be a professional but also care for my children at the same time?
I would restate what Joel Carter told me as I went on maternity leave while at Ogilvy and Mather. And he said, what do you want to do when you come back? This was when I was pregnant with my first child. And I said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to, I have always wanted to have children. I love kids. I babysit all the time. I love my family of younger siblings and cousins and stuff. I'm like, I am called to be a mother and I want to do this. I was like, but I also really love my job. I love creative problem solving or whatever. And he said, my advice to you is keep your little toe in the water at the very least. Don't ever completely unplug because you love them both, and find a way forward. So recurrent theme, find a way forward. Something he said, my dad said, and then keep your little toe in the waters.
Find a way forward. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Christine, thanks so much for coming on The Grit Mindset. It was great to have you as a guest. Really enjoyed hearing your story. I know you serve a lot of our mutual friends out there, so appreciate your time today. And for the listeners on The Grit Mindset, hopefully you have some great takeaways from Christine's story. Until next week's episode, stay gritty.